Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. I am your host, W.J. Sheehan, author of the series of books, Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters. 38 books in total, in paperback, ebook, Kindle, and audiobook, all available at Amazon. And you can go to our website, BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com, click on books, and there are viable links there to every volume to take you where you want to go. And just for a moment, some of you may have heard me say our shop facility is now open on the website. And it's going to take you where you can buy a lot of cool merchandise. I just want to spend a moment talking about this merch. First of all, the reports coming back from people who have bought stuff, they all like it. And Casey and I spent a lot of time sampling, checking different ways out that we were going to do things. All of our gear, shirts, hoodies, whatever it is imprinted front and back. The best we could put on it, the best ink, the best clothing we could get through this outfit. It's all manufactured in California. And as far as I'm concerned, none of it is junk. We did our very best. I don't buy junk. I don't sell junk. And the reports have been that it's very good and very well received. So go out there. There's hats, mugs, shirts, magnetic truck and car decals, all kinds of cool stuff out there. And have at it, my friends. And now, without any further ado, my brother and co-host, KJ Sheehan. Kev, how are you?
I am good. I didn't know that bill made in California. So tariff-free as well.
Yes. Well, we did try. I mean, I know we're going to get there as a country, but we did try to source American-made items to put our artwork on when available.
No, it's great. And I just wanted to add, like you said, double-sided, so front and back for shirts and hoodies, and different image on the front and back, too, and multicolor. So it's pretty cool. I got my Creep On shirt, like I was talking about last week, and it's a high-quality shirt. And by the way, I don't know where you go to get the extra creep, but it's definitely extra creepy.
Yeah, Kev, and I bought a Bigfoot T-shirt that I liked a while back. It's a picture of this gnarly Bigfoot playing a Stratocaster with his fangs hanging out.
There's a picture of it on the website, Bill.
Okay, yeah. So now, folks, this was a single-sided image done in white ink. The image is like men's and men's. Not great, not terrible. The shirt was good, and I paid $47 to have this shirt shipped to me. And I like it, and I paid up for it. My shirt's a better quality. Like Kevin said, multicolor ink predominantly on both of them. Different images front and back, so it's twice the work. And we're employing Americans in California to make this stuff up for us. So support me, support the podcast, support a little American workmanship. And I think you're going to dig what you get. And there you have it, Kev.
Good deal. Good stuff, Bill. So what's going on up in New York this week? We got a hurricane coming our way, maybe?
Well, at this point, they're saying it's going to stand offshore. But the forecast for our area will be 15 to 25 foot seas.
I saw these seas forecast.
Yeah.
And they're just crazy. They said 100-foot seas out on the ocean associated with it.
Yeah, well, it's a 140-mile-an-hour storm.
I know, but 100-foot waves are...
Yeah, it's a lot of movement, a lot of water rushing around out there.
I'm talking about that, folks, not because it's our usual random banter before the show starts, but it actually will lead into what I'm talking about today, potentially in cryptids in the news and other oddities.
So why don't we blow right into that, Kev?
Yes. No pun intended or pun intended?
Pun intended.
All right. Well, we've had a lot of people write in over the years to ask for stories about ghost ships. Mm-hmm. And, there's a lot of different stories about ghost ships. We'll talk about one of the most famous ones, just as a side note to the story we're going to cover tonight, called the Flying Dutchman, which is more of a legend of a ghost ship, but it's interesting.
Right.
And then there's some that I've looked into that seem to appear on the Great Lakes on a regular basis, but then when people go out to see them, they disappear. But a lot of those, or the ones I looked into, have been proven to be mirages, some type of reflection that takes place out on the
that appears to be the outline of a ship's hull.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And we're not going to talk about that one tonight. We're going to talk about one of the most famous documented ghost ships of a sort, where someone came across this ship and it was in really good working order, but there was no one on the ship.
That is really bizarre.
Exactly. And this is a bizarre story. And, it can get a little lengthy depending on how much we go into it, but it's pretty darn interesting because it's so well documented.
Okay, let's have at it.
Okay, so picture this. You're on another sailing ship, not the ghost ship, which we'll tell you the name in a minute, but this other Canadian ship. It's a brigantine, which is about 100-foot-long ship with two masts. The sails on the forward mast are square rigged, and the sail on the rear mast is what's called gaff rigged, so more like a traditional sail.
Okay.
And square rigs atop one another, kind of stacked up, typical pirate ship kind of.
Yeah, the old school ships that we're used to seeing. Exactly.
On Operation Sail, and anytime you talk about tall ships, they're usually square rigged.
Yeah, and all the old galleons, the Spanish galleons, the British warships, they were
warships,
all square riggers.
Absolutely. Whereas like a small schooner sailing ship, they're usually gaff rigged. They have a couple of big sails on the back.
Yep, interesting.
Cool. So this is this Canadian brigantine called De Gratia. They were just sailing along in the Atlantic Ocean. It's December 1872. Okay?
Yeah.
They're under gray skies. They're going along. It's late fall, December 4th to be specific. And they're about 400 miles east of the Azores Islands. And the Azores are off of Portugal. So they were kind of between the Azores and Portugal out in the open ocean. And the helmsman of the De Gratia spotted another vessel. It was also a two-masted brigantine, just like theirs, but something was very wrong.
Any flag of country of origin?
Not. They didn't know yet.
Okay.
But we will get there. So these guys on the De Gratia were from Canada.
Right.
Yeah. And they had set sail, by the way, out of New York.
Okay.
So going over to Europe. And so they see this boat, and it's just like theirs, but something's wrong. And what they mean by wrong is it's moving erratically in the seas. Its sails are lopsided, with some of them torn, so kind of not well trimmed at all. And it's drifting pretty aimlessly in the choppy seas, almost like someone is not steering the ship.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So the captain of the Dei Gratia, his name was David Morehouse, he watched the vessel through his spyglass, right? Or otherwise known as a little telescope, right?
Okay. Yep.
And a jolt of recognition went through him because he recognized the ship. It was a ship called the Mary Celeste. And the Mary Celeste was an American merchant vessel that had left New York Harbor 8 days before he had.
Wow.
So she should have completed her journey by now, like she left 8 days before him. And the Mary Celeste was on its way to Genoa, Italy. And instead, there she is, adrift in the middle of the ocean between Portugal and the Azores.
Wow. That is freaking creepy.
Exactly. So for a few hours, David Morehouse, the captain, shadowed the ghost ship, hailing her repeatedly, but there was no response, no sign of life on deck. Captain Morehouse, his concern mounting, ordered a small party to get on a little, boat,
right,
and get on board and investigate. All right.
Yeah, so they must have had most of them had like some type of dory or
some kind
double
of
ender they could drop overboard.
Else. Yeah, exactly. Something they could row into shore if they anchored somewhere right offshore.
Absolutely.
Due to the depth of the water.
Yep.
So the first mate, his name was Oliver DeVoe. He was the first to set foot on the deck of the Mary Celeste. And he said the silence was profound, broken only by the groaning of the timbers and a little bit of the snapping of the tattered sails in the wind. The ship was, in his words, a thoroughly wet mess, with water sloshing on the decks and several feet of water down in the hold. But she was fundamentally sound. She was entirely seaworthy.
That is bizarre.
It gets more bizarre. So as DeVoe and his men moved through the vessel, the mystery deepened with every step. In the crew's quarters, they found sea chests packed with clothing and personal belongings, all completely undisturbed. In the galley, or the kitchen of the ship, there were ample provisions of food and fresh water, enough to last for 6 months at sea. In the cargo hold, 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol were almost entirely intact.
Huh.
Okay, so this is like denatured alcohol, not the kind you drink.
Right.
And in the captain's quarters, they found clothes, toys belonging to a small child, and a melodeon, which I had to look up. Do you know what that is, Bill? A melodeon?
I really don't. I think it's something like a little harpsichord or something.
It's like an accordion.
Yeah.
But some things were conspicuously absent from the captain's quarters and from the ship itself. First off, from the ship's only lifeboat was gone. The captain's navigational instruments, his sextant and chronometer, were missing, as were most of the ship's papers. Right?
Yeah.
And of course, most chillingly, every single person was gone. And there were about 10 crew on the ship, the captain's wife, and their 2-year-old daughter.
So you're talking 12, 13 people, even if they got off the boat, went in one lifeboat.
Right, and they got off the boat that appears to be completely intact.
Right, now water in the hull, a few feet of water in the hull, could have happened from lack of steerage after the boat was devoid of crew.
Oh, yeah, could have been big storms, could be anything.
You could be getting hit with waves from different directions where you're not properly, at least trying to steer into it, into the seas or whatever, and water could accumulate, from waves coming over the deck.
100%.
But even if you were going to go in a lifeboat, why would you abandon a ship that was sound to go into some little 16 or 18 footer with oars and maybe a little mast and a sail on it in the Atlantic.
Yeah,
I mean,
there have been other ships found with no crew on them, right? But everything's gone.
Right.
You know?
I mean, like somebody pirated the ship and you would certainly take any valuables, food products, anything worth money or worth anything of value to you and your crew, you would certainly take.
Oh, yeah. Even the clothing and stuff in the crew's chest, you'd take all that stuff.
Of course, it was highly valuable back then.
So that's one way these ships disappear, pirates. Another one is these squalls that pop up, right? But you wouldn't find like the lifeboat missing, the navigational instruments and stuff like that. Because if a huge squall came, the last thing you'd be thinking about is getting into a smaller boat.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
I know it seems like I'm making a joke, but I'm not. It's just not what you would do.
No, if anything was happening where waves and water was blowing over the deck, you're not lowering a lifeboat into that.
Right.
You're lashing yourself to the mast or something so you don't get washed overboard.
Yep.
And guys used to do that. If they were in heavy seas, they would actually rope themselves to something so they couldn't get washed over the side.
Oh, I mean, even in sailboat racing, Bill, out in the ocean, we often have a harness tied to the boat, tied to us.
Yeah, so you're not going over.
No, you don't want, or if you go over, you're staying with the boat,
Yeah,
you're not
exactly.
just going swimming.
Yeah.
So that's another way where folks disappear. But this one is very strange in that the boat is basically intact and they had plenty of food, they had plenty of water, and yet everybody's gone and the lifeboat is gone and some of the navigational equipment is gone.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, with piracy, a ship like that was of tremendous value. Labor, materials to build something like that would have been astounding in any day and age, right? A big boat. So you would take half of your crew and man that boat. Even if you killed everybody and threw them all in the drink, you would salvage that boat and now bring both boats wherever you were going to go to sell it, maybe recrew it and make money or more piracy with two boats, right? I mean, you wouldn't leave it.
No, and then another thing that could happen is mutiny. So the captain could have driven everyone crazy. So then they kill the captain and his family, and they take the small boat to take off so they don't get caught. But when they study the captain of this ship, his name was Captain Briggs. He's actually a very mild guy, not a drunkard. He has his family with him on board, his wife and his small child that's 2 years old. And he seems to be, as captains go, a super nice person. So that kind of rules out the mutiny.
Yeah, that's mutiny is you really have to have had it up to your ears with a captain to convince a crew.
Well, it's because the old Captain Bligh, mutiny on the Bounty. He was miserable,
Well, yeah, you get nailed for mutiny, you're going to the gallows.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it.
Wow. Boy,
so
that's
there was
crazy.
a whole court proceeding into this, okay? Because this other captain did find the ship. He did go to turn it in, right? He towed it back to turn it in. And, there was a theory that he killed everybody so he could get the salvage money. That was proven wrong, no? But I'm going to go through the findings in the court proceedings just to review the evidence again, okay?
Okay.
So they did really detailed and meticulous cataloging of all of the clues about the Mary Celeste. So let's walk through like the investigators did. Here's what they found. A 6-month supply of food and water, all untouched. The personal belongings of the captain, his family, and the whole crew, including clothing, sea chests, and even money. The cargo of 1,701 barrels of alcohol was largely undisturbed, though 9 barrels were later found to be empty. A sounding rod used to measure the amount of water in the hold was found lying on the deck, suggesting it had been used shortly before the abandonment. Missing from the ship, all 10 people, so there's 10 people, the ship's only lifeboat, which was a small sailing yawl,
Okay.
Captain Briggs' sextant, chronometer, and the ship's register and papers, the essential tools for navigation. The physical state of the ship provided more clues. There was about 3.5 feet of water in the hold, a significant amount, but not enough to threaten the seaworthiness of the vessel. One of the ship's 2 bilge pumps had been disassembled with its pieces laid out neatly on the deck.
That's kind of weird. Yeah.
Some of the sails were damaged or missing, and rigging ropes were found trailing the boat haphazardly in the water.
Boy, that's kind of weird, too.
Yes. So the court used this evidence to construct theories of foul play. He suggested the crew had broken into the alcohol, gotten drunk, and murdered Briggs and his family in a mutinous rage before fleeing in the lifeboat. But that was dismissed because the cargo was denatured alcohol, essentially poison, so you can't drink it.
Yeah, so they were assuming alcohol drunkenness,
Yep.
but it would have killed them.
Yep. And then the other theory was, which I mentioned, that maybe the captain of the De Gratia that found the ship ambushed the Mary Celeste and murdered everyone to bring the boat to Gibraltar for salvage value. But they said that was impossible because the De Gratia was a much slower ship and it had left New York 8 days after the Mary Celeste. So it never could have caught up to it.
Yeah, I mean, that just literally doesn't hold water.
Right, exactly. So, they basically didn't find they didn't find anything out. Right?
Nothing conclusive.
Nothing conclusive. But
Right.
what they did find, remember I mentioned that 9 of the 1,701 barrels had nothing in them. What they did find that these 9 barrels, and only these 9 barrels, were made of red oak, which is much more porous than white oak, which was used for the rest of the cargo. So over the course of the voyage, it's highly probable that these barrels leaked, allowing flammable alcohol vapor to slowly accumulate in the sealed cargo hold.
Oh, boy.
And that could have been like 300 gallons of alcohol.
And a lot of vapor.
Yep. So, there's...
But no
Now,
sign of an explosion or a fire or anything.
No, you're an excellent straight man on this.
Yeah.
So this theory was discounted for many years because there were no scorch marks, no soot, no evidence of a fire on the wooden ship or an explosion.
And there would have been.
Well, yeah, but listen to this. So in 2006, many years later, a scientific experiment conducted at the University College of London provided potentially the missing piece of the puzzle. Dr. Andrea Sella built a replica of the ship's hold and ignited a concentration of flammable gas. The result was not a prolonged fire, but a pressure wave explosion. A spectacular, terrifying ball of flame erupted from the hatch, but instantly dissipated. Yeah, the blast was powerful enough to blow open the hatches and create a deafening roar on the ship, but it burned out so quickly that it left no burn marks on the surrounding structure. So, the theory is, you can imagine, for the captain and his crew, if this would have happened and they witnessed this massive explosion in the heart of the ship, they'd have no idea and no way of knowing what this was or if it was going to happen again.
Right. So at that point, I would have bailed and taken my chances in the yawl.
Well, get this. The theory is similar to what you're saying, but a little worse. They got in the yawl to get away from the ship, but they tied the yawl behind the ship. That's why all those ropes were there.
Oh, I see. They said, let's stay in tow with it and see what happens. Because they could always cut the rope or untie it if they had to.
But the theory is that then the storm came up. They're tied to the ship. The ship still has its sails up and it's sailing along because that was the play, right? And the yawl gets in for a wild and potentially, deadly ride behind the ship and sinks.
Wow, man. A real mystery.
Yeah, but and I'm not saying by any means that if this is true, right? I mean, this is all theory, but it's interesting. It's science-based theory. If this is true, I'm not saying in any way that this is what happens with most ghost ships.
Yeah.
Pretty weird that 9 of the 1,701 barrels were ones made out of an inferior wood, and only those 9, and then they would leak and potentially cause this explosion. But wild story, because there's also stories about or theories that aliens had something to do with this and everything else.
Yeah, well, we hear that. An alien ship came down and absconded everybody, including
fortunately, no tales of swimming Bigfoot.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, if you're tuning into us for the first time, it's Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters. So whenever Kevin digs anything up relative to Bigfoot or other cryptid creatures, he leads into our show with this Cryptids in the News and Other Oddities segment. But we will chew on just about anything unusual because it's just the type of cats we are.
Yeah, and clearly this falls into the Other Oddities category.
Yeah, no, and wow, Kev, ghost ships.
Yeah, so that's it, Bill. I know it's a little bit long this week.
No,
super interesting.
Very intriguing and very interesting, and I'm sure the listeners enjoy hearing about it. And, folks, if you know of anything strange, odd, unusual, any subjects you'd like us to dig into, we're game. Just contact us at Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters and .com. Or it's just BigfootTerrorinthewoods.com, right, Kev?
That's right.
BigfootTerrorinthewoods.com and hit the contact link and chime in with us. We'd love to hear from you. And now for some crazy Bigfoot activity. I'm going to take you back for a moment here. I think it was about a month ago, Kev, we relived the bone pile, was it not?
That sounds right.
With the good doctor, the orthopedic surgeon who ran across that body with its head caved in and the lower limbs removed in that site that he described as a campsite loaded with bones and no vegetation growing in it. So this is a flip side to another bone pile, and you're going to hear what Terry Wade, a resident of the state of Washington, had to say about what he found and what he did. Terry said to me, as I thought about having this discussion with you today, Bill, I felt it would be best to lay a little groundwork as to who I am and what I do. It may help to add credence to what I'm about to say to both you and your listeners. First of all, I'm a third-generation grocer, a food wholesaler. This business, which I now run and own, was started as a grocery store in New York in 1905. Today, having taken over the business many years ago from my father, we are strictly a wholesale vegetable distributor to the restaurant and food service industry, predominantly in and around New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey. I have a great managerial and employee base that affords me a surplus of free time, with me being able to accomplish most of what I have to do via phone and internet these days. Since I don't really need to be there, except for the occasional fly-in, I've lived in numerous locations throughout the country over the past 20 years or so now. I'm currently in Washington. In preparation to talk with you, I was trying to settle on a number in my mind as to how many days I have spent in the woods hunting. To the best of my knowledge, I came up with somewhere between 12 and 1,500 days on the hunt. This would be inclusive of both small and large game, including waterfowl, 8 safaris, and I'm reasonably proficient in the disciplines of rifle, shotgun, and bow, considering myself at this point in the game a decent tracker as well. I have seen a Bigfoot, but that's not why I called you. I called you about some evidence that I had found and a little experiment that I did in the hopes of furthering the cause of Bigfoot being real to those who doubt. It's not that I need anyone to convince me, you understand. In the fall of 2006, while stalking some deer in the fringes of the Pashatin Wilderness, I had a large Bigfoot pass above my position on a hillside while I was on the hunt below. As I said, I'm not here to speak of this sighting because I frankly don't have much to say about it. I saw it, it was real, and that's it. What I do want to talk about is the subsequent bone pile that I came across and my experimentation regarding it. In 2008, so 2 years after seeing this Bigfoot while hunting, he was stalking in the area of the Henry M. Jackson Wilderness, west of Ceylon, when I came into an area that was devoid of, shall I say, all warm-blooded animals. It must have been for well over a mile before I realized that there was absolutely not a creature to be found, be they great or small.
Now, Bill, I'm going to interrupt you. I apologize. I almost never interrupt. Where was he?
Henry M. Jackson Wilderness, which he described as being west of a city or town called Ceylon, Chelan.
Okay.
And so he thought, he realized that there's no creatures around. And a short time later, he came upon what he describes as a small clearing, which was scattered with the bones of just about everything that lives in these parts. I'm talking skulls to legs and everything in between. Now, this is exactly what the orthopedic surgeon came across in the shadow of, as he called it, Mount Oki. Now, it's not that I stood there counting or anything like that, but there were so many bones from so many different animals that it would be impossible to determine what belonged to what. Just so you understand, if you were to shoot a deer in the woods and leave it be, in 6 months' time there would be zero trace of the animal's body left. In fact, it's my opinion that the skull is the last to go because that is virtually the only thing I have ever found when hunting, that and or antlers. Perhaps there is less marrow in the skull, but other than that, I really don't know why. Regardless, the fact that all of the bones were here and that there was no wildlife around really got my attention. So I decided to do some experiments in the area over the next year or so. It was some 3 months later that I came into the area again and took down a deer about 2 miles away from this bone pile. Now, what I did was not right as it pertains to hunting, but this was an experiment, and just for this one time, I broke the rules. I shot the deer and left it in the woods so that I could come back to it over time and log what happened to its carcass. I had seen a show about a place called the Body Farm many years ago. This was an outdoor forensics laboratory where human donor bodies were allowed to remain in various states outside in order to determine the rates of decomposition under a variety of circumstances. This study would then better enable law enforcement to determine the time of death for bodies found buried, laying in the woods, or even in the trunks of cars for that matter. As far as the deer was concerned, and my inability to come in here every day, I had determined that somewhere between 4 and 6 months was needed for this deer to vanish without so much as a trace. There was absolutely nothing left, and this happened less than 2 miles away from this bone pile, which, by the way, was still there and untouched. I must also mention that any hunter worth their salt will tell you that no predatory animal, be they bear, lion, wolf, fox, coyote, or anything else you could think of, will take their kill back to the same location over and over again. I have never seen that to be true in all of my days hunting as well. Whatever they don't eat will be eaten by someone else fairly quickly. Now, having done my experiment only 2 miles from the side of the bone pile, I went back and set up 3 game cameras in low and high positions near the pile and left them for a month. When I went back in and retrieved the cameras, not so much as one picture had been taken. I reset the area and came back a month later, now finding 2 of the cameras missing, one smashed on the ground. It looked like it was hit from the front side with what I will describe as a punch. I say this because there was no damage such as a rock or a log would have done to the plastic that was visible to my eyes. I took the camera home and disassembled it on my own workbench in hopes of salvaging the card. Thankfully, the card was unaffected by the assault. When I reviewed the card, there were 2 pictures. In the first image, I saw what appeared to be, to my eyes, the dark fingers of a hand that must have come from the side into view, but it was very fuzzy. The second image was completely dark, as though the lens was facing or being held against something dark in color, and that was it. After having performed my experiments, my own personal conviction is this: the bone pile is a place where a Bigfoot is returning to over and over again over time to eat. For what reason, I do not know. And why the first camera hadn't triggered anything for over a month's time, I don't know that either. Secondly, the animals in the area surrounding this place will have nothing to do with what this creature had touched, steering clear of the entire area for quite some distance. Again, the reason for this being a mystery at this time. It's also rather remarkable that as I came into the area for the first time, it was at about a mile away that all life was seemingly gone in the woods. And yet, at 2 miles distance, my deer had been completely consumed. This made it clear to me that if it was a Bigfoot, in my opinion, its saliva on these bones or something about it had created a large barrier of some sort around its kill. At least one thing is now clear in my own mind. Nothing in the forest, in my opinion, wants anything to do with Bigfoot. Within any other species, animals will contend for another's kill. If nothing else, they will return to get their fill of what another may have left behind. The second bone pile, Kev.
Well, that is something else, Bill. And I mean, to me, even though it defies other species, it kind of makes sense. You know, this Bigfoot, you know, if it exists, is clearly an apex predator.
Yeah.
And other creatures out there in the woods with it would have its scent, especially because we know it does carry some stank with it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, so it does kind of make sense to me logically that they would avoid the carcasses or bones
Right.
that you know, the Bigfoot had hunted down and collected.
Right. Now, Terry didn't comment on any particular odor or heavy scent in the area.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that, like he said, which I thought was pretty astute of him, these salivatory juices that into the porous bones. Animals' sense of smell being so superior to ours.
Yeah, no comparison.
And anybody this seemed like this had to be an ongoing area of dismembering and eating things to have this many bones there. This didn't happen in a month.
No.
So it seems to me that the creatures in the area were well familiar with this area and just stayed clear of it. How else can you describe what he just said?
I mean, it makes sense.
He said a mile out, nothing. And 2 miles out, he tagged this deer. And in, what did he say, 4 to 6 months he believed it took? Because he couldn't go there all the time. It was gone. So it took basically, let's just say, a half a year for it to completely be untraceable.
Right.
Whereas in this other place, just a festival of bones. Well, if that's the case, what happened to the bones of the deer 2 miles away? They were gone.
Yep.
So and Kevin, this Bigfoot business, I've learned so much stuff from hunters and a variety of different people. It was a hunter many years ago that told me that rabbits, hares, different animals will just gnaw on beavers, will gnaw on bones to keep their teeth small.
Oh, I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, because apparently a number of animals, their teeth grow. And they will actually grow to the point where they can't get any food in their mouth.
Yeah, they can't function.
Yeah, they can't function if they don't wear them down.
Yep.
So, very interesting account. And I agree with him. I mean, what do you make of it? I think his experimentation was excellent.
Yeah, comparing how long it would take a deer carcass to decay down to bones normally, and then what happens in this area.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't fault the guy in any way. I mean, I think he just did a superb job. And even being willing to go back into this place numerous times, hiking and however long it took him, and days and hours and whatever. But he was free. He could do things.
Well, he clearly put a lot of time and energy and intelligence into it.
And interesting how the first set of cameras over a month's time revealed nothing. And the second camera or cameras were missing, and one was basically destroyed with no visible evidence of I thought, again, it was very astute of him, no damage to the plastic casing that would have been, indicative of a hammer or the ruddiness of a log bashing it,
Right. Anything else, right?
It just looked like he said, it got crushed or punched, he said.
Yep.
Very bizarre, huh?
Wild stuff, man. Wild stuff.
So, Kev, what do we have in our listener mail today?
Yeah, we have some good listener mail, and folks keep writing in. Give me some of those ideas, too, of other cryptids and other oddities to look into. But this one comes in from someone that, is out there looking for Bigfoot. Okay. And his name is Charlie, and I think you've talked to Charlie in the past based on his letter.
Okay.
He says, "Hey, guys, this is Charlie from Atlanta. I've been a listener from the beginning, and I've shared some of my stories with you in the past. When it comes to Bigfoot, I consider myself a hopeful skeptic." And I like that, Charlie. I think I might steal that from you. I'm a hopeful skeptic at times. "I've had quite a few strange things happen to me in the woods that could be attributed to a Bigfoot, but maybe not. I like to rule out all other possible variables from the equation before I get convinced otherwise. But I concede that the evidence for Bigfoot is growing and quite compelling. The following experience is one that has pushed me closer to believing, although I did not hear, smell, or see the elusive beast.
Okay.
At the time, my family and I were living in northern Utah, close to the border with Idaho. Our home was in a town in a high mountain valley. There have been a few sightings reported in this area, and Finding Bigfoot filmed an episode near where we lived. We've always enjoyed camping, and my family and kids now are getting old enough to start doing backpacking trips with me. I spent quite a bit of time hiking and looking at Google Maps to find a nice overnight backpacking camp location that wouldn't be too difficult for my kids to carry a pack into. I often took our dog on hikes in the canyon that was closest to the town where we lived, and I wanted to find a good camping spot high up in the canyon for the kids. I found a spot near the upper end of a trail that looked like a nice meadow about 100 yards off the main trail. It looked like a nice flat area ringed by oak and juniper trees. So I decided to hike in and then search for the meadow I found on the satellite images. It was at the end of the summer when my wife and I set out on the hike together. A few hundred yards up the trail, we stopped because there was a pile of 5 or 6 large spruce trees on the side of the trail.
That's interesting.
Yes, it gets more interesting. The pile of trees was odd for a couple of reasons. First, the spruce trees don't grow that low on the mountain there. They grow at least a half a mile or more up the mountainside. The lower slopes are covered with scrub oak and juniper. Second, the spruce trees were broken, not cut. The spruces had trunks that were 8 to 12 inches thick, but there were no saw or axe marks on them. They had simply been broken off and transported approximately a half a mile down the mountain.
Boy, that is crazy.
Yeah. I told my wife something like, I wonder what broke those off and got them down the hill. They weren't here last week. Might have been Bigfoot.
Huh.
I'd like to point out that this is a wilderness area. No logging, no heavy machinery is ever in the area at all. We walked up the trail for a couple of miles before we turned south to find the meadow. I thought that I had read the landmarks correctly, but after climbing the mountainside for a couple of hundred yards, we realized that I had the landmarks wrong, and the meadow was probably farther up the canyon. We found a deer trail that deer use as they move up and down from the high mountains to get water from the creek down in the canyon and then back up again. The trails used, I knew the trail was used heavily by deer because it was full of deer tracks and deer droppings. The deer have always been using trails like that for so many years, decades, and maybe even centuries, that the tracks get deep and can actually be seen on satellite imagery like Google Earth. We, following the deer trail down slope, knowing that it would eventually intersect with the main canyon trail. We descended the trail, chatting about this and that, and then we came to an obstacle. Several large spruce trees were laying across the trail, forming somewhat of a jumbled wall about 3 feet high or so. The trees were large, all of the trunks about 12 inches wide, and like the other spruce trees we had seen earlier, they had been broken, not cut or chopped. Smaller spruce trees were stacked up on both sides of the trail and over the over the ground, root systems still intact on the smaller trees. Then it dawned on me that we had walked into a kill corral. Deer coming down the trail would be blocked by all the trees across the trail, and the smaller trees on the sides of the trail would be a great hiding place for whatever was hunting the deer.
It's like an ambush site.
Yes. We slowly made our way through the tree jumble and then down the trail, arriving back at our house without incident. Like I said, we did not see or hear or smell a Bigfoot, or any other cryptid for that matter, but the broken trees are compelling evidence that something superhuman built a deer-like kill trap in the Utah mountains.
Crazy, huh?
And then he says, P.S. I always carry either my Chiappa rhino 357 or my Taurus Raging Bull in 44 mag on my hip in the woods.
You gotta love it, man.
Pretty awesome, right?
Yeah, wow.
I know that's a longer letter than we typically read, but I thought it was super.
Yeah, but you know what, Kev? Again, people see something because they're looking.
Yeah.
And the guy is obviously an observer. He's got area knowledge, and he's just putting pieces together. He's got a presumptive mind. He's thinking about what would this be? What could this be?
Yep.
I mean, is he jumping to conclusions? Maybe. But you tell me what you think happened there.
Yeah.
It's kind of bizarre, snapped off large trees, dragged around. I mean, geez.
Yeah, that's the big mystery there, right? Lack of heavy equipment, lack of logging going on in these big, huge trees. 12-inch diameter spruce tree is a big tree.
Yeah, that's a big tree, and no matter what it is,
snap that in half.
There's some serious weight there to drag around. Even if you're not shouldering it, you still got to drag it.
Yep.
So, but you know what? I was talking to somebody a few weeks ago. I saw a piece one day about some guys down south that are still doing a little logging the old-fashioned way. And by that, I mean they cut a tree down by hand, and they lash a chain or a rope to it with a mule.
Oh, yeah, drag it around with the mule.
They tell this mule, like, get. And that mule just busts it and starts dragging this huge freaking tree at speed until they tell it to stop.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a mule. I mean, the mule was dragging a tree across the ground like it was nothing.
Oh, yeah.
So, excuse me. So when we talk about what could a Bigfoot do, well, shoot, I would imagine if a mule can drag a large tree, I think a Bigfoot could probably drag one too.
Absolutely.
So we look like, come on, that's ridiculous. How could you possibly do that? Well, I'm not an animal, but what I've seen some animals doing, I wouldn't put it past them that they could absolutely do that. Very bizarre, Kev.
Yeah, it's great. Great letter, folks. Keep them coming. And please keep writing in. Give us some ideas for cryptids in the news and other oddities. We're 7 years into this journey, over 300 episodes, and we still love hearing from you.
Absolutely. And remember, go to the shop, get a book, hit the shop button, get yourself a hat, a T-shirt, coffee mug, whatever you like, man. There's a lot of cool stuff there. And remember, if you should find yourself walking around in the Crabtree Meadows, the Chalon Wilderness, and I'm trying to remember the name of the area where Terry Wade found the bone pile. You best remember one thing, my friends. Always carry more gun than you think you're going to need. Sleep tight.